Brittany Martinez. She is the editor-in-chief and founder of Evie Magazine. She joins me right now. Did I say that? It's Evie, right? Evie?
It's Evie. It's
Evie. Okay, like Eve, maybe. How'd you come up with the name?
Well, the other names that we wanted were trademarked. And it's kind of a long story. I'm not gonna about it what it is yet. But I mean, if you look kind of in old mythology, there's Adam and Eve screwed over the world. So Evie's like the new Eve.
Interesting. Well, it's great to have you here. Look, I know you and your husband as well, who's involved with the magazine well, and I actually am very proud that I was one of your first profiles early on, because when I heard about what you guys were trying to do, it really struck me as a fascinating project, an interesting project, a beautiful one. I mean, if you go to your website, it's just extraordinary. It's gorgeous. And you're talking about a lot of women's issues in a way that strikes me as very fresh, as very new, as extremely different. I've always been, and you know this, a big believer in there's power in femininity. And as women, we need to recognize that the power of everything that we can do, which, we still can do, and we're the only ones, let me just say, that can do in terms of having kids and being mothers and all of this stuff. I know you're a new mom yourself. Look, I mean, being a woman is wonderful, but somehow that gets lost in this culture right now. And what you guys are trying to do is celebrate that in new ways. So I commend you for that. And I'm sorry to see the mainstream media. And who would have thought Rolling Stone would be the mainstream media, but they have gone, full on mainstream. Don't think any other way. Don't even suggest that we think about things in any other way. And they just came out with a big hit job on you guys, saying this women's magazine is like a Gen Z Cosmo for the far right. So, Brittany, tell us about the magazine, and we'll get into this because this is just wild, this article that really takes issue with some pretty silly stuff. But again, I personally think that you guys do a great job, and you have kind of a neat libertarian, dare I say, maybe even counterculture in a world where everything is like you have to fit into this box way of approaching things.
Yeah, it's funny. We've been getting attacked by a lot of the legacy medias, by Vice, Jezebel, Rolling Stone. It's funny. I never would have thought that I would have a hit piece from the Rolling Stone. I have zero talent. But the editor-in-chief now, it's funny, a few years ago, his friend got raided by the FBI for child pornography, and he conveniently left that out of the Rolling Stone article. So I think it's been taken over by some shady people. And like I said, like the last decade, their biggest hits were the fake Duke Cross story and putting the suspected Boston bomber on the cover of their magazine. So,
yeah, I mean, look, Rolling Stone, I just find it amazing that a magazine that once prided itself on being able to write about anything, prided itself on free speech. My good friend, now deceased, PJ O'Rourke, whom I used to work with, was actually their foreign correspondent for a time. And PJ was, very much about individual rights and free speech and all these good things that I know you care about too. The idea that somehow you're not allowed to write an article, quote, is wearing masks making us meaner. Somehow that's offensive to Rolling Stone, which, by the way, we needed to have that conversation because I'm sorry, but people started to get really mean when they had those masks on. I'm convinced it's because there was some anonymity and you couldn't see people's faces. You didn't know if they were smiling or scowling. And it just was kind of a more hostile, aggressive environment. What's the problem with writing about that?
I mean, I guess that makes Evie extremely controversial. I think anybody with eyes realized how mean and unhinged some people are getting about the whole mask situation. Mm-hmm. So, but hopefully.
No, well, it was an important conversation, by the way, to have, right? Because, okay, if you're going to wear your mask, you might want to be a little extra careful and a little bit more considerate because, people misinterpret.
Yeah.
This author goes on, and her name is E.J. Dixon, and she believes somehow that you were trying to come at this quote unquote culture war and convert people and do so very slyly and do so in a very different way, complete with lots of pink and nice colors and lip gloss. And apparently I guess if you have a different value system, you're not allowed to like lip gloss and pink stuff. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, for years, women have been sold this lie by progressive media sources. Oh, sleep around, do hookup culture, don't worry about family and kids, all this stuff. And now, like, women are more miserable than ever. So we're like, hey, like, if you want to be successful in your career, like, here's how you can do that. If you want to start a family, here's how you can do it. We're never going to encourage orgies or cheating on your spouse or whatever that women's magazines have talked about for decades. So we are counterculture in that way. But I mean, I didn't think that was extreme, but apparently now it is.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I've told you before because we know each other, going back a few years. I mean, I've always considered myself very independent, almost libertarian in some ways, although I'm probably too hawkish to be libertarian. But like I want to give everyone a fair shake, and I want to look at all sides of an issue. And it's one of the reasons why I like what you guys are doing, because some of it feels more conservative maybe than me. Some of it feels way too liberal for me. But I know that I'm going to have an in-depth piece that's going to raise questions that otherwise maybe I'm not going to see in the traditional media sources. And one of the most important things I do think for women is valuing ourselves, right? And part of valuing yourself means knowing that you want to have a happy life, and what are the tickets to sort of getting there? How do you do that? How do you engineer that for yourself? And I think that's been a big part of what you've been trying to empower, whether you want to be a full-time stay-at-home mom, whether you want to be CEO, an editor-in-chief of a magazine as you are, and a mom, or whether you want to go into politics and become the next president of the United States. I mean, to me, it should just be about saying, okay, like,
Yeah,
let's help you get there.
yeah, I mean that was the plan. And in the beginning we talked about side effects of the birth control pill. We talked about embracing your feminine nature. And now since TikTok's come on, they've kind of taken all the things we've been talking about and said, hey, like, I've had issues with birth control too. Hey, I'm tired of splitting the bill with some loser guy. Like, I want to be taken care of. So it's kind of 5x our traffic because we were the original magazine talking about it. And now we're getting bigger and bigger. And that's why we've reached 100 million women in the last couple of years. And that's why Rolling Stone and all the magazines are extremely upset about the whole thing.
They're like, how dare you, right?
Yeah.
So the idea here is like somehow they're issuing this as a warning, or are they trying to tell advertisers, oh, don't advertise there because their values are not what ours are. They don't, have the same appreciation for the orgies.
I'm not really sure what the whole point was of it. They had like one freelancer who wrote one article for us years ago, and then they had another freelancer who was actually super Republican, who said that we had an agenda, which was kind of funny, because I know who was telling her what. But yeah.
What about the writer herself that wrote this? I mean, it sounds like she reached out to you a few times, and
So
what we're talking, by the way, with Brittany Martinez, who is the founder and editor-in-chief of Evie Magazine, and it's just a really neat space. I have a lot of men watching, but hopefully we're bringing in some young women with this interview. But if you're a man, and you're watching, and you have a daughter or a wife or a granddaughter or a niece, it's a great magazine to share, an online magazine, because I think it's just, there's a lot of trash out there right now, especially you just mentioned TikTok, and it's a fun magazine that does actually, I think, kind of walks you more down the middle in terms of the values that one would want.
Annual print issue too. So if you're watching this, subscribe online. You can get a print issue for your daughter, for your wife. But I did want to talk about too with EJ how she wrote the article. So she was reaching out to writers who had written maybe like twice for us years ago. So all these writers were DMing me on Instagram, and they're like, hey, like, the Rolling Stone is reaching out to me. I don't know what's going on. I've written for you for years. So I reached out to her and was like, hey, EJ, like, I highly recommend you reach out to employees, former employees, or like writers who have written at least 10 articles for us, not like one or two offs. So she did finally reach out to 2 employees and then one writer who had written a lot of pieces for us. They all had glowing things to say. One of the employees said she's been foster momming and how amazing it is that Evie has let her be able to do that. And none of that made the cut. So the only notes.
I didn't think the quotes were that bad, by the way. Again, in the Rolling Stone piece, it's like she was really looking for something, but she didn't quite come up. Maybe, I mean, if the worst you've got is wearing masks, making us meaner, and somebody talking about how you guys were trying to be very libertarian in spirit, but maybe some, times, look, we're in a crazy world. Like any which way you slice it, right? I mean, the whole transgender thing, like, I'm sorry, it's a new and different world right now, and I think most Americans are pretty compassionate.
I wanted to hear all the crazy things happening with Evie Magazine. I was really excited to see this mass hit piece, and I was a little disappointed. I was like, oh, it's the best she could come up with.
Yeah, I mean, so she said, and by the way, you yourself have some very nice quotes in the piece, and I thought you really came across as a class act because you were willing to talk with them and you were willing to give them stats and numbers and all of these things, which was important in terms of helping their piece. But it's very clear that there was an agenda here, and I find that, again, troubling in that I think people ought to be able to read what they want to read. And can't we trust people? Can't we trust young women to make their own decisions? Like, do we have to think that just because there's an article on the, how fidelity and marriage may help you achieve financial success one day, which, by the way, every single study, and I say this is, I come from an economics background, financial background, every single study will say one of the best, most assured ways to ensure generational success, by the way, is to have a two-parent household. Because you know what? It's hard to raise kids, right? It just is. And if you have a two-parent household, you have a much more likelihood of financial success for the family and for the children. And you guys write about things like that. And somehow that's touching a nerve. And I guess I just look at it and say, like, why? Like, why can't we let everybody do their thing?
Yeah. I think it must be like a Western far left thing because, any other country you go to, this would just be sane. This wouldn't even be an article, but.
You had another piece which they took aim at because you talked about moving in with your partner before marriage. Well, and somehow, and that was not necessarily a good move. Again, I'll just go back to the studies. I think if you look at the divorce rates and the number of people that shack up before they get married, I mean, like, look, I mean, it's there. And so why not write on that? Why not have that discussion? Yeah. Why not have young women have all sides?
Yeah, it would help a lot of women from heartbreak being with loser men that won't commit to them. Like, we honestly want to help women live their best lives. That's the entire point of Evie Magazine.
So was this hurtful?
The piece?
Yeah. Or are you just kind of laughing it off? Because it's kind of like, again, I was expecting that it might be a little bit more aggressive. I just don't think that they really could come up with what they wanted to come up with. It sounds like it had very much an opinion.
Yeah.
I tried to do a takedown.
I think she tried. I mean, I've told you, she reached out to, people I haven't talked to in years, like people all over the place, but everyone except boys and the writers who've written for us a lot, but everyone else in the world was like contacted for this article. And most of them were just like DMing me and like laughing about it. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to ignore it. Like, ha ha ha. But I think she just didn't get
other examples she took issues with. 13 reasons why you should quit hormonal birth control. Now, again, I'm just going to say, like, there's plenty of articles that will tell you why you should be on it. Like, why not have another viewpoint represented?
Yeah. Why not give women the side effects? Like, we're not saying get off the pill, but a lot of because we were talking about it before everyone else talked about it and told about the side effects, all these women came to us and were like, I got off the pill. I had depression. Now I don't. Like, all these great things happened to them. So we're like, okay, if you do get on the pill, before you get on it, you need to know what potential side effects it can have.
And it's playing with your hormones.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a little dust up. I think it thrust you guys more into the public eye. So I'm hopeful that more people find your magazine and say, okay, let's check this out. And so what doesn't kill you can make you stronger. But this is not the only venture they took aim at. You guys also have an app, 28, and you're helping women with planning their cycles, not like natural family planning, which, by the way, the article says that's what the app is. But I suspect it's more just awareness tell me about your app and tell me what you're most offended by with Rolling Stone accusing you of being something that you guys really aren't.
Well, yeah, they said in the marketing materials it marketed itself as an NFP app, which isn't true in any way,
That
shape,
would
or
be
form.
natural family planning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the only like registered, FDA registered app for that is Natural Cycles. Like Flow is not one, Eve is not one, any other cycle syncing app is not one. But what makes 28 the best of all the cycle syncing apps is we have fitness, nutrition, and insights based on where you are in your cycle. So you wake up, you have this beautiful app, you click on your insights, you're like, how am I feeling today? And it's like, maybe your breasts are feeling sore because you're in this part of your luteal phase, or maybe you should be taking more self-care. Maybe you should be eating these nutrients to help your body and your hormones during this phase. So it helps women all throughout the phase, and all the workouts were designed by my friends who have trained Victoria's Secret supermodels and other supermodels and huge celebrities, and they're just really, really good. So it
By the way,
gets
I should just mention to anyone who's watching, if you're listening now on the podcast, make sure you come over to the YouTube channel and check out Brittany's interview here, because Brittany herself is a former model. You're sometimes in the magazine. I always go looking for you. You're not always there, but obviously, you have all that going on, including your knowledge of photographers and trainers and that whole world.
yeah.
So just a little tidbit for anybody who's listening right now. So the app like helps you kind of take charge, right? Take charge of your body and your life.
You know your body. So women feel different every single day of our cycle. So it helps you know, here's why I'm feeling this way, and then you can have a better day.
Yeah. No, I mean, sometimes it's just sort of knowing, like, wait a second. Oh, that's why. Oh, okay. Yeah. And sometimes you're like, gee, this week I've been feeling really, really whatever. And then it's okay. Well, oh, that's why. So I think it does help. Like it doesn't necessarily change anything per se. I mean, maybe the eating and stuff and your point on the self-care and the exercise, but it can, just knowing, right, what's going on means like you're not losing control. It's not that there's something else going on.
Exactly.
So natural family planning, that's, I guess, what I mean, they basically think you are, like in bed with a super duper right wing movement. Again, I would just say, cause I've known you guys a while, I certainly have never been under that impression. I think you've come at femininity from a very different and very empowering perspective. And I think it's important to have those conversations right now. I think we want to empower our daughters to be anything that they can be and that they want to be, and that they have to, understand certain risks out there. And it's part of what you do. Now, did this author take a lot of flack for this story or other stories she's written?
She got ratioed terribly on Twitter. Thank goodness I started Twitter to help Evie, help build the following, help share the articles and get higher traffic. And luckily I've built like a good community on there where people know me and they trust what I say. So I told a few of my friends on Twitter, like, hey, like she, only reached out to these people. And then our writers were like posting about it. They're like, hey, like I sent this whole comment about Evie to EJ that didn't make the article and all this stuff. So she got ratioed pretty terribly. And then she had other horrible things happen like a couple days later. So it's just not been her week on Twitter, and now she disabled it, sadly.
Well, we feel for her. But listen, I would just say in reporting in general, and I've been a journalist my whole career, and certainly have been more opinionated in recent years and have had the flexibility to be able to do that. But look, it's, as a journalist, it's your duty when even if you're writing a hit piece, by the way, to really do your due diligence. And I guess I just came away reading this saying, this is an author who really was not able to do proper due diligence and clearly had an agenda from the beginning. And yet her supporting materials didn't go there, didn't support whatever she was alleging, so to speak. One of the things that you guys say about Evie, and I just love this, you talk about how the mission is to empower, educate, and entertain young women with content that celebrates femininity, encourages virtues, and offers a more honest perspective than they get elsewhere. And this is my favorite line. You say, Evie, she's classier than Cosmo, sexier than Refinery 29, and smarter than Bustle. It's so true.
Thank you.
And Bustle's written on me too, by the way. But I liked your angle. I liked how you were coming at things, and I like how you still come at things. So what's the next step in all this? Just to continue growing the publication and grow the message. I know you're on TikTok, is that right? And you have a huge following. I'm told, right? I got to spend more time on TikTok.
One of my friends became TikTok famous, and she got me on it like a while ago. And so I have I have over 300,000, so it is like a big number, but I wouldn't call myself a TikTok influencer. I maybe make videos twice a week if I think of something cool to talk about. But yeah, the best thing you can do to support Evie is go to eviemagazine.com, subscribe to our print issue and our digital subscriptions. We have a whole new rebrand. The site looks amazing.
It does. I've seen it. It looks absolutely amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful site. And I was like getting nostalgic the other day. I was telling a funny story to my kids about how like 17 magazine, they had some issue, and my mom like saw some great outfit for fall, for school, for high school. And I'll never forget. And they had like, it looked like a yodeler's outfit from like Austria, because it was like these plaid shorts and these suspenders and like this, I don't know, this blouse with this little bow. It really, I think they thought I was a foreign exchange student. Anyway, somehow my mom saw it in 17 and we were looking at it. She's like, oh, that'd be cute. So I wound up insanely wearing this outfit to school. But I was telling my kids the story the other day, and I was laughing my head off about it and just sort of saying, yeah, look, we all have gone through those moments, right? Those awkward stages when we were young. And I blame 17 for it. But the thing is that like when I was reading 17, it was just about the outfit that you were going to wear, right? To high school. It felt so innocent, so much so that when I knew I was talking to you, I went back and I looked up this particular issue. Like, it's crazy that I remember this. But the cover had something about how to talk to boys.
Yeah.
That was it. Like, and now you look at these magazines today, Brittany, and like, it's just a whole other ballgame.
Yeah, it's just about like sex toys and stuff. It's sad. I used to love 17 too. That was one of my favorites. And yeah, it'd be like what your crush says about you. It would just be like really cute magazines. Yeah. And I do appreciate the girl that was so triggered by Evie Magazine and the Rolling Stone article. She commented that originally when she first read the pieces that she felt like she was 13 or 14 back in high school, like reading her favorite magazine. And I was like, good, that's what we were going for.
You want. Yeah, no, that's what you want. And look, if you're exploring some, like, and I've told you this, like some of the stuff feels more liberal for me, some of it feels more conservative, but it always makes me stop and think. I mean, the more meatier pieces, right? Like, and then the other stuff is just kind of fun. And look, yeah. I think that we've got to be broad enough and accepting enough and understanding and compassionate enough that we're willing to look at all sides.
Exactly. Be teaching women how to think, not what to think.
Yeah. Anyway, congrats to you and to everything you're doing. I'll check out 28, and I encourage the whole audience to go to Evie Magazine, sign up, get the digital subscription. If you have a daughter or a wife or somebody that you want to get the print one for, it's absolutely beautiful. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous magazine, and they are taking chances, clearly, like you wouldn't believe. You wouldn't think that these would be big chances, but crazy world we live in these days. Hey, thanks so much, Brittany. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.